Digital Equipment, Data General, Hewlett-Packard sneered at us. They said, oh, no, these little microprocessor-based computers aren't really going to be anything big. None of our existing customers want that tiny a machine. It's not powerful enough, and it's going to go away. And they actually said that we were just playing around with something useless. But that inspired us more. It made us more and more passionate to prove that we had a great device and every home in America could have a computer. Every home in the world could have a computer and get somewhere good. Well, my step to having my own computer was very simple. I already had this video terminal that Stephen Jobs and I were selling. And I could type to a computer in Boston, and it could type back to my television. I said, what if I get rid of the computer in Boston, and I put my own little computer, a microprocessor, some memory, and the world was just finally, first time ever, 1975, silicon memory was going to be the cheapest form of computer memory there was. Cheaper than the old core memory with all these little donut-shaped magnetic cores strung together with wires that the old computers used. And I put my microprocessor, some memory, and then I said, do I want to build this big front panel? I've done it before, with all the switches for ones and zeros and lights and buttons to put the ones and zeros into memory. I said, I don't really want to do that. I don't like a big piece of metal. You know, I'm used to a typewriter. I don't want to drill all the holes and mount all the switches and run the wires down and add a bunch of chips for the wires. I always hated to add chips. I always wanted things to be as small and simple as possible. So I said, why don't, look at our calculators at Hewlett-Packard. When we turn on the calculator, it's actually running a small little processor, a small little computer inside. And the computer watches what buttons you push. When you push the 5 button, the processor says, oh, he pushed the 5 button, it's a program. And it says, I'll put a 5 in the display. And then it goes back to saying what button is being pushed. I said, I will write a program like that. In those days, to turn on a computer and have a program running, it took me 2 chips just to have 256 bytes of memory. You know, that's a millionth of 256 million bytes. It's nothing near to the sort of memory we have today. But I'll write one program that lets you type some things in on your keyboard to get those ones and zeros into memory and make the job a lot easier. And I built this device, I designed it, I thought of a microprocessor. Intel microprocessor cost $400. I could not afford that. I could get a Motorola microprocessor for $40 because I worked for Hewlett-Packard as an employee. So I designed my computer for the Motorola microprocessor, and then another company came out and introduced the 6502 microprocessor for $20. So that's the one I went with. It was a simple choice. All the processors were equivalent to me, and I bought the cheapest one. And so I designed it, and I went into Hewlett-Packard in my cubicle, and in a few nights wired it up and actually got my computer working for the first step. And about that time, there were other computer kits being built with Intel microprocessors, and I built mine with the 6502. Bill Gates wrote a basic language, a computer programming language that would run on the Intel microprocessor. He and Paul Allen wrote it. Their names were famous in our little group of hobbyists. Maybe only a few thousand people in the world knew those names, but in our club, they were like heroes. They were moving the world forward in these small computers. And I got this idea. What if I sit down and write my own computer language? And BASIC's the right one because these new computers need games. And there were a lot of games written in the BASIC language already. So I said, what if I write a BASIC? Wow, I'll get as famous as Bill Gates. I'll get famous like Bill Gates. They'll all know me and come to me and want it. And unlike Bill Gates, though, I would do it and give it away rather than sell it. That was my choice. So I sat down and I wrote a BASIC. I had never taken any courses in it. I had read some books that a friend sent me copies of, and so I knew a little bit about it and managed to write my BASIC. Tough job. That was a tough job. Well, I was getting some popularity in my club. People liked my little computer. It was one board with only about 30 chips on it, and a little second board with some memory. And people were getting impressed by it, and they wanted it. So I started passing out my designs for free. No copyright notice, no nothing. My motivation was to design cool things and help them get to other people who wanted to change the world and make the world better. So I gave away my design that was going to become the Apple I computer. You could obviously say Apple is not only Apple I to this day. I also gave away my code that I had written, and I told them, just build your own. You can get all the chips for a small amount of money, you know, a couple $100, and you can build your own computer, and it's a great computer that has enough memory for a computer language that I'm writing. And Steve Jobs started coming down to the club, and he saw the interest in this machine. And Steve said, why don't we sell something? It sounds funny, but you know, it takes a lot of that thinking of what are you going to do that's good for the world if you have something. Me, I just wanted to create it. But it really takes somebody like Steve Jobs that wants to find the way to get it to the world. He always said, you sell something small, like the terminals we were selling, you make a little bit of money, you get a little reputation, and with that you invest it, and you make something bigger, and you earn more money. And then you can get even more money off that, build bigger and bigger things, and eventually you have a big company that is meaningful in the world. Well, he said, let's start by selling a PC board that makes assembly of your computer easy and quick. We'll make the PC board for $20, and we'll sell it for $40. And since Steve and I had no money at all, and we'd have to invest, you know, a few $100s each, we figured out that we'd have to sell 50 PC boards to get our money back. And I didn't think we'd do it, but Steve said, yeah, but the two of us, one time in our life, we'll have a company together. Who could turn that down when you're young? Two best friends starting their own company. Because, you know, you don't have to justify it with a profit. You're just going to do it on the side, as you will in the garage. You're just going to do it at home for a while. So I said, okay, but I have a problem. I can't start a company. I work for Hewlett Packard. I have to offer it to them first. So I went down to Hewlett Packard. I showed them what I had. I described the computer that we could build that would let you write programs on your home TV. And Hewlett Packard had too much company culture. The types of products they built back then were the tools that engineers use. Oscilloscopes, signal generators, that sort of thing, power supplies. And they had to be very formal and not fun. They had to be very professional looking. And Hewlett Packard just couldn't get into this new idea of a computer that is great for the home and fun and easy. Many engineers at Hewlett Packard told me, this is the best product I've ever seen in my life, but they couldn't justify it as a Hewlett Packard product. It's a problem that all companies have. For example, we built a style of calculator at Hewlett Packard, and we owned the world of scientific calculating. We owned the world. Everyone loved our calculator, and it calculated by a method known to computer scientists called RPN, reverse Polish notation. 2 years later, Texas Instruments came out with a calculator that would do the same things, but it used what's called arithmetic expressions, parentheses, like the way we write parentheses on paper in our formulas. And we laughed, and we said it's a toy because it has parentheses. Sometime later, people were going to laugh at the Macintosh and say it's a toy because it has graphics. Well, we at Hewlett Packard were so proud of our machine, we pulled out a card with a huge equation, and we laughed because we said nobody could ever solve it with this new instrument from our competitor, Texas Instruments. I was the guinea pig. I took the Texas Instruments calculator and started working on the equation. I thought, well, which part do you always solve first? And I spotted it. And I said, oh, God, I've got to type about 6 parentheses to get there. And I realized there's no way in the world I'm going to remember enough to get this problem solved. There's no way in the world any human being can do it on this new Texas Instruments calculator. And then I cleared my mind. You know, very often people like Socrates and others have said, clear your mind of precepts and try to think from just building a brand new structure to get the truth. And what came to me was, I can just type this equation in from left to right. I typed as fast as I could type from left to right, and I got the right answer the first time.